All right, so quickly looking at what trades is setting up. Before I do that, I'm going to give a quick lesson, I guess. And, so one common question, or is how do you kind of trade and use the different time frames, etc. So the first thing I want to mention before I get into that is what is a major error in the markets. A major error in the market, and what is holding a lot of people back is this: trying to read the 5-minute or any minute based chart. This is any minute based chart, 5-minute, 3-minute, 2-minute, 1-minute, trying to read it intraday. You're making a big mistake. Because understand there's a difference between structural, what is it? Oh, 1 second. There's a big difference between structural time frames and entry time frames. All right? Entry time frames have no structure. They just don't have any structure. Structural time frames are used for finding trades. Structural time frames are used for finding trades, meaning their levels are used for finding trades by many traders. Okay, so what that means is that if you have a high or low, right, it is going to be used by more traders if it's a higher time frame. For example, daily, 4-hour, that high or low is used much more by many traders than a 15-minute high or low. So those time frames carry weight. So the idea of all time frames, all that being the same, is all lies. They're not. And technical methodologies make a major mistake. One of the drawbacks is that they don't consider time frames. So in most methodologies, they just don't consider time frames. They will tell you, they won't even mention it. They'll focus more on the pattern, or they'll focus more on a process or procedure or whatever. They don't really focus on time frames. But why do we know that this is very important? Is because of the fractal nature of the market. Now, what do I mean by that? I know you might have heard it, but practically, how do you execute using that? Well, if you see a higher time frame that's doing this, it's on its way up, right? So let's say you have green bar, green bar, green bar. You have green here, you have green here, green there, right? So you have green bar. But we know that that time frame is really on a medium chart is something like that. Okay? So the idea of using one time frame is it has to be combined, because if it's not, you're going to get direction wrong. The only way to get direction right, or have a high level of confidence and entries, and for the reward to be significant, is to understand this, that this is on the way up, and there's a middle time frame which is either pulling back or on the way up. And this is why and then the final time frame would even be one level lower. So what I'm trying to say here is that there are 3 time frames that are used. Basically use 3 time frames. All right, that's what I'm trying to say. All right, the highest one, it could be a daily or a 4-hour or a 3-hour, right? So, but it has to be multi-hour or daily or higher. All right, and preferably daily or higher, but I mean 4 hour on markets that trade round the clock is valid, as it is used by many traders, making it a structural time frame. And those support and resistance levels are used. So anyway, so the first first time frame, I'll just say it's the daily, okay? But you know that you could make a 4 hour, daily or 4 hour. Now, this is your directional time frame. This time frame is for direction. Okay, this is what you need to understand. There's one time frame that is direction. You know, I'm going to go with the daily because I'll just try to explain the way I use it instead of giving too many scenarios. So this time frame is for direction. It gives you a very good understanding. Is for direction. Then, if you're using market that trade around the clock, like a Forex or futures, use the 3 or 4 hour. And this is for setups. All right. And then finally, the third time frame, which is 5 to 15 minutes, is only for signals. All right. But in my opinion, all three are they create togethers, and this is what folks are not talking about. They create directional clarity and intuition. I don't know how else to say this, but when you combine this, it creates some type of directional understanding. Clarity and understanding and intuition. Without this, we go back to the first mistake that I mentioned, which is this thing right here. This is used by many individuals who will eventually figure out their mistake, that just trying to read the intraday chart without understanding the levels and the context, it is futile. It will not work. It will not work. All right, it just doesn't work. And I know folks who say, well, I know someone who did, someone who that, but we're not talking about outliers here. All right, so it doesn't work. And you can find me with the 1% or 2% that it does work for, but on the flip side, the 98 and the 99%, it doesn't. So that's the point. So the daily, the 4 hour, and the 15, you can use it for futures, right? And they will create directional understanding and intuition and trend, etc. Okay, so now how do you do this? So let's say you have the daily is going up, all right? Let's just say it's just going up like that. Okay, it's on a chart. And you see bar after bar going up. And then you have this 4 hour, 3 hour, 4 hour. And that line is like that. Right? Okay. All right, so you understand up now, this is the setup. Where is the setup? Let's say it's a pullback setup. And I'll just give one example, okay? So now it's coming back. What did I do? And you have, for some traders, they're supply and demand type traders. So there you go. It's coming back. So that's the setup, right? So you have the daily direction up, then the 4 hour doing the setup, which is basically a retracement right down there to the near the low, right? So this we'll call it the demand zone for those demand zone traders. But it could also be a spring against this low and reverse, right? Against this ABC, it could be ABC where C is right below this, or it could just be the tested breakout. So whatever the point here I'm trying to make is this is your setup. All right. Now, then finally you have the third time frame, and you see that this correction is really a downtrend that climaxed, and all of a sudden you got the biggest move up pulling back right here. So this is the 5 minute, let's call this a 4, so 3 to 4 hour. By the way, if you're using stocks, really recommend to incorporate the weekly. Really recommend to incorporate the weekly. You will see the clarity that that chart brings with stocks is amazing. I mean, it's really amazing. If you're a stock trader, you gotta use the weekly. It brings so much clarity that it impacts the trading in a good way. Anyway, so we'll just use the daily, let's say you trade futures, daily, the 3 or 4 hour taps here, and all of a sudden you have this, and whichever signals you're using. I don't know what you're using, but it's very clear that this is buying, and then it's on the springboard right here, low price, low volume, makes a higher high, finally, now you're getting pullbacks. Alright, so do this. Alright, so the point I'm making here is don't do this right here. Don't do this 5 minute. Do this. Okay, but you got to learn how to coordinate all three. The first step is to have all three on your screen, and then see how they flow together. It really is quite amazing. Like, maybe I'll give some examples. Anyway, maybe I'll do that later. I don't want to do now. All right, but this is the idea. All right, this is how you see the market. Right, that your daily direction, daily direction, 3 to 4 hour setup, and here was a demand zone setup or the support setup, right? And 5 minute heavy buying. So just call it a change of behavior. Or what is it? Change of character, or some scotch or some shit. Right? So daily, boom, and you see daily direction, 3 to 4 hour setup. If this is a spring, it's also good. Like that works, right? So that's one thing. This is how you do it. But irrespective of knowing this, unless you practice it, the knowledge is not going to be executable. You have to get in the habit of putting these three together and trading and executing, which is the next step. Right? Okay. Now the other part of what I wanted to say was about targeting. Now this is really important, and it's a pretty big lesson learned for me. Now for the targets, I'll give you the short version. You want to scale out with at least 2 exits. The mistake that is made, first let me cover the mistake. The mistake is the market rallies. Let's say you got in on that entry, right? The market rallies, pull back. Now you think that it's going to make a new high or have a measured move higher, right? This is what is taught. A, B equals CD, right? This is what's taught, and this is also hope and dream target. This, if you believe in probabilities, you know that it's only a percentage of the trades will look like this. This is one scenario. The other scenario is this. And what happens is when the market pulls back, goes to resistance, you're in profit, comes all the way back to spring, and you're out of the trade at break even. Because you made some profit, you moved the stop and went down, you got out break even. But you could have taken this chunk right here. Let's say about $500 per contract. All right, you could have taken that, but your target was all the way up here. Not considering that this second scenario, this is the I wish target, right? I'll just call it the measured move, MM. This is to resistance. Meaning it does not break out. Then there's the other one that it goes up, it goes down, it breaks out and then comes all the way back, which is very atrocious. Meaning psychologically it hurts. This one right here. And this one is pretty, but this one here is pretty bad because here on the breakout there's a lot of euphoria. And you go from a state of euphoria to all the way when it comes back to break even, despair. So this emotionally, this is pretty tough because you were in, you could have taken profit, but you didn't, and it comes back down here, going from, let's say, $750 per contract all the way down to like almost break even, so it's like $125 per contract, right? So when it does this, this is the possibility, right? So this is the measured move scenario. This is the two resistance scenario. This is it only goes to the breakout scenario. But you didn't take profit here because you wanted a measured move. So this scenario is quite mentally taxing. It just breaks out, makes the higher high, and immediately falls back. Alright? You have other couple of scenarios, but this is the measured move, hope and dream. This is two resistance. This is the breakout, and then there's another one that's, it's not really two resistance, but it's very similar, where you have this, and there's something here that stops it and it goes down. So this is like either break even or loss. And finally, you have the one that just fails, and that's your loss. All right? That's your loss. Now, I'll explain
maybe halfway to resistance. I'll say, not to resistance. It doesn't make it to resistance. Okay? Now here's the important part. Okay. So you have measured move scenario 1. Scenario 2 is to resistance. Scenario 3 is breakout. Scenario 4, it doesn't even make it to resistance. It gets stopped by some supply zone or whatever. Right? And then finally you have a loss. So when you're trading, right, the mistake that a lot of people make is they try to get the 1 to 10 or more, and they're just targeting new high. But the scenarios are so many that they won't get it. Right? So it just will not work out. And then their patience gets tested when unmet expectations occur. For example, they're in 750, they had the exit at like 1250, but it falls back and now they're at 125, and now all types of crazy shit happens. After it does this, it could actually fail, or it can go up. And they got out at break even. When they get out of break even and then it goes up, it creates even more. It creates a lot of pain. So now, if you want to function in a trading environment, right? If you want to function in a trading environment, first thing you have to do is stop expecting the hopes and dreams scenario as the only scenario, and start expecting anything can happen. From a targeting perspective, anything can happen is any scenario can happen. And most importantly, to plan for any scenario. So give up this idea that it's going to go to a point and figure target, and I'm only going to exit at that point and figure target. Give up the idea that it's going to be a measured move and I will only get out all my position at the measured move. Give up the idea that it's going to go to a very high level on a weekly target and I will only get out there. But instead, plan for any scenario. But before you plan, accept anything can happen in any scenario. All right? So when you accept any scenario, you then plan for any scenario. So now the practical part of it is, how do you plan for any scenario? So let's just say you have at least 3 lots. So one lot, well, let's just say you already have the stop. So that means you've taken care of the loss scenario. Now you have to take care of which other scenarios. One scenario is not to resistance or to resistance. Okay, so either it goes some degree up, meaning you make some profit, but not the mega profit, but you make something. And a lot of trades will fall into this category. Even the quote-unquote losses will, first you'll be profitable. Okay, first you will be profitable, and then they come back. So if you have 3 lots, one lot you want to scale out at least 2R. All right, you will see automatically that even if the trade doesn't work out in its entirety, you took something out of it. So if you have 3 lots, 2 went to break even, but 1 you got out on the bounce and made something. This is so good for your psychology that Because here's the thing: if you're only looking for the mega trade, there's, you know, how should I explain this? Remember, there's a distribution, right? So let's just call it like that. The mega trades, the big money trades, right? The big money trades. Let's just say it's a distribution. All right. I think I did it wrong. Let me make it easier. What I'm trying to say, and just use percentages, but the idea is the trades that quote unquote work, right? You might have heard folks saying, oh, you know, my system is 50%. But 50% to what target, man? This is not explaining what target. Because out of all the, if you say, let's just say, if you have a good system and it's like 65, 70%, right? There is no way all of the 70% are going to give you more than 5 to 1. Let's just, there's no way that all of these are, I mean, 5 to 1 actually, there's some, all right, let me just use a crazy example. But there's stuff out there for 5 to 1. But anyway, let's say 10 to 1, right? So you cannot say that you have a winning system and all of them are like 10 to 1, some obscene amount. You will have, out of the 70% that work, you will have maybe very few 10 to 1, right? Then you will have some that are 5 to 1, more that are 3 to 1. Out of the winning, what the fuck? What did I do? Hold on. 3 to 1. And you will have a lot, I mean a lot that are 2 to 1. A lot. Like, even when it goes down, you're gonna have like, out of the 70%, let's say that's your 100% of the winners, right? You will have almost all of them, all of your winners did at least, I say about 2 to 1 out of your winners, okay? So out of your winners, out of 100% of your winners, right? Almost all went to 2 to 1. Then it starts decreasing. So for 10, only about 15 or 10 to 15% went this crazy amount. A lot of them, say about 30%. Starts getting real high right here, about 65%. And then like, should be 85 or 90%. Did at least 2 to 1. So the idea is you don't want to be waiting for this 10 to 1 or mega trade, the mega big ones, because you go lose your fucking mind. All right? Because if that trade went to 5 to 1 and you did not take profit, it's going to create a lot of emotions. Because you're waiting for your 10 to 1, you didn't take any profit on a trade that was 5R in and positive, and didn't scale out and didn't take shit out the trade. And what happened was, in this 10 to 1 didn't work out because it only went 8 to 1 and then came all the way back. So out of a trade that goes 8R in profit, you don't take out anything because you're looking for the 10 to 1, and that's called being stubborn. Right? It's going to create too much psychological issue. So the idea is to make trading easy and psychologically easy and not create a lot of tension. You want to always take some out. And this is just an opinion, so it's like, So, on the 2R, you scale out. On the 2R, where was I? So one lot at 2R, right? One lot at 3R, and then one lot at 4R, right? While when it goes to 2R, or when it goes to 3R, you trail by 2R. All right, trail by 2R, trail by 2R. Something like this. So that means that if it goes all the way almost to like 4R but doesn't get filled, it goes 3.5R. That lot, when it pulls back, it will be filled at 1.5R. So you didn't like totally mess that one all the way to break even, but you took something. This approach, it will not give you the trade-off here. There's always a trade-off, right? So the trade-off is you're not getting the mega R moves, but you will have higher frequency of wins. And the higher frequency of wins is much easy on the psychology. Is in my opinion, is much better and prevents tilt, prevents regret, prevents I don't know, what is it? Just sitting and thinking and doing all this backtesting and all of that time wasting, right? So this makes trading much easier because A, you will get fills, targets, so that makes it easy. And B, when you get those targets, let's say your 2 and 3R got hit, it creates the opposite of when you don't get filled and it goes all the way down to either break even or loss. So I don't know what to call it. Maybe it's some degree of happiness, some degree of contentment, but you're satisfied. Like, okay, satisfied. You got something out the trade, and it's easy to satisfied, and it's easy. All right, it's easy. And it's realistic, and you're satisfied, even if you not the whole thing got filled, but chances are a lot of them will get hit. Like 2 and 3R will just tap again and again and again and again. So the frequencies of successful trades will increase, and because that frequency increases, it will be much easier on the psychology. And if it's easy on the psychology, it's doable. If it's not easier on the psychology, you are in limbo. Limbo, and only because you're chasing the mega R trades. And it's actually much more. Some folks are trying to get that 30 to 1 and all that. But this is very, very unrealistic. Not only is it unrealistic, it's very hard to do, and it's your hope and dream target. That also requires a lot of psychological resources, because let's say you have a 20 to 1, it's highly possible that it's going to go 10R and then come back all the way to break even. And then you'll be kicking yourself saying, why didn't I take profit at 10R? 10R. I'm waiting for 20R, it only went to 10R, and I fucking didn't take anything out of the trade. So it's this right here, what I'm showing, one lot at 2R, one lot at 3R, one lot at 4R, right, averages about 3R. 1 at 2, 1 at 3, 1 at 4, your average is about 3R, right? And there's a lot of trades that are small moves. They will do something like this. Right? They do something like this, and you're making money. You might fill all of this, and you'll feel really good, because when it reverses, you're like, oh shit, at least I took here, I took here, and I took here. All right. There's a lot of trades that do this. A lot of trades will do this. Whereas this guy who's looking for this, and the first thing happens, he's like, going to go into regret mode. So coming back to the original point, thinking in probabilities and accepting the way the market is, right? You want to then accept and plan for the different scenarios. When you think in probabilities, there are probability that it'll do this big move. There's probability that it'll go to resistance. There's a probability that it'll break out and up thrust and come right back. There's a probability that it won't go to even resistance, that it'll be a minor bounce, and there's probability of loss. For all of these scenarios, or the major scenarios, not all because there's too many, but major scenarios is all you need. And to be able to capitalize on them means not only you're thinking in probabilities, but you are implementing it in your trading. And if you're implementing in your trading, it means you have, your mind has accepted it, and you basically think in probabilities. So thinking probabilities is far more than saying, oh, I have a win-loss scenario, I got 65% win and 35% loss. This is not thinking in probabilities. If someone tells you that this is thinking probabilities, what's your edge? 65%, 35%. You think this is probabilities? This is so elementary that there's a big difference between this and actual realistic trade execution, which is 1 lot at 2R, 3R, and then 4R, and then also while trailing by 2R, right? There's a big difference. One is putting it into practice because you accept the various scenarios, plan for them, and it's in your execution, versus giving some random 65-35. This is totally useless. If someone says online, oh, I have a 70% winning system, what's the distribution of the wins? There's a big difference. If 65% of them, are they all 5R? Impossible, right? That means that if someone says I have 65 or 70% 5R, right? That means if I lower the R to say 3R, it will go from 65 to like 90. If someone says, let me explain. So if someone says 65 and he's saying 5R, I can get 5R with 65%. So the immediate thing would come to mind is instead of taking 5R, what would be the percentage if I only took 3R? If I lower the R, this percentage of 65 should increase to like 88 or 90%. So then I would move to this. The frequency would automatically increase. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that, but the point here is to think in probabilities, plan for those probabilities with just different scenarios, and to add that to the execution. So that's the second part of what I was explaining. And the first part of what I was explaining is combining daily and then daily direction with hourly, like 3 or 4 hour setup, and then 5 to 15 minutes. So it's actually 5 or 15 5 to 15 minute signal. So one is for direction, the other is for setup, the third is for signal and trigger. Signal and, so I put signal and trigger. Signal and trigger. Alright. Have a good rest of your weekend. Thank you. Bye.